So I'll try to do a gear video of what gear I had at the end of the trip, and maybe I'll talk about the things that I sent home. So these are the clothes I wore. I had a pair of REI zip-off pants. The legs, one of the zippers broke like on the first week of the trail, and I sewed it up. It was like lengthwise down the side of my leg, so I sewed it up so that you couldn't really take the leg off when you still had shoes on, but that's all right. And I hiked like that for about a week before my stitches got torn on climbing over blowdowns in the bob. And so after that I thought, this is dumb. Plus I was really hot all the time, so I just sent the legs home and hiked in the shorts. I like the shorts because they have lots of pockets. I could put trash in one pocket, I could put chapstick and bug spray and whatever other random little things in the other pocket. And the thing I didn't like about it was that as I lost weight, the waistband became kind of hard to like put. When I put on my pack, I had to like get the waist in the right spot artificially. But you know, whatever, little details. The shirt that I wore was this Jolly Gear shirt. Worked out pretty good. The fabric is very thin, but it's like all other things. Like if you go to REI right now, almost everything is this stretch polyester, and this is also stretch polyester. And when I fell into rivers or got really wet in the rain, it was hard to take the shirt off because it just sticks to you and it's all stretchy, and it would frustrate the hell out of me when I was like, I don't know, feeling desperate to take my shirt off. A nice thing it had were pockets. I hate these kind of pockets, but they worked out okay. The hood was really good. It provided a lot of shade. I usually hiked with my face down, and so my face was in the shade most of the time. If I was looking up into the camera, then it looks like it never shaded my face, but it did a pretty good job. I binder clipped it to my hat. I had sun gloves in addition to the thumb holes that the shirt already has. The thing is with the thumb holes is that it would pull the sleeves tight against my upper arms, and then flies could bite me through the fabric. So to keep it loose, I just never used the thumb holes, and I used these OR sun gloves. The sun gloves were small, so they fit well, but they were hard to take on and put off, which was really annoying to me. So in the future, I'll just wear them a size too big. I had these Darn Tough socks. They did get a hole in them after 800 miles, but they were still good. The problem with Darn Toughs is they never dry out. So I actually bought another pair of Darn Tough socks so I would carry two instead of one. But I bought them in West Yellowstone, and then I went home, so I never got to enjoy having dry socks to change into. I brought gaiters. I tried hiking without them and promptly got lots of little rocks in my shoes, so I wore them. They were too small, so they were hard to take on and put off, which was annoying at the end of the day, especially if my socks were wet, but you know, whatever. And then I wore Lone Peak, what are they, 5s? Lone Peak 5s. They were on sale at REI. I was surprised that they fit me. They were women's shoe. I bought 4 pairs. I went through 2 of them, and they were so comfortable. I got no blisters. The bottoms would wear off fast, but the tops look practically brand new, especially if I wash them. They look brand new. So these are great shoes. I really like them. Another thing that I wore towards the end, for several sections, probably since around the blowdowns and the bob, I would get bit on the back or stung on the back of my knees, at the top of my calves or the back of my knees every single day. And after several hundred miles of that, I really got sick of it. And in Lima, somebody had discarded an old Smart Wool long sleeve shirt. So I cut the sleeves off and I tied this around my knees, and that would keep the bugs from biting the back of my legs, or at least I never got bitten again. So it seemed to work. I tied it with random things I could tie around my legs that I found in the hiker box in Lima at the hotel. This was my hat. This is from a company called Sprints. I covered over their logo with this little unicorn, because the unicorns on my hat were so small you couldn't tell that there were unicorns on there. And there's my binder clip that I would clip the Jolly Gear shirt's hood to. I got so many compliments on this hat. I think this hat was responsible for me being able to get rides when I was hitchhiking. The comments that I got about this hat said a lot about the people who saw it. So some people interpreted this hat as a gay pride hat. I could tell by the comments that they gave me. Some of them interpreted it as an anti-Trump hat, which I could tell from the comments that they gave me. A lot of these little towns in Idaho and Montana were definitely Trump country, and so you could tell who was the non-Trump person in that town by the comments I got from this hat. Other people thought, oh, it's such a cute little My Little Pony hat, and you know, so it just made people happy all the time, which I really which made me happy, which was really helpful. So I used these Cascade Mountain Tech trekking poles, carbon fiber with the foam grips, and they were $20 when I bought them. They have only one adjuster, which was plenty. I never had any problem about that. And I replaced the original giant grips with just elastic lanyards that I could use if I felt like I might accidentally drop the pole down a cliff or something. I barely ever used them. So they were very light, so I could carry them on the back of my pack. And then I did bring the rubber tips so I could pack them and then not poke holes in people's upholstery if I got a ride, or when I flew home. I put all my gear in a big duffel bag, and so I didn't have to worry that they would poke through the duffel bag. So I had a part of a bandana that I would use to wipe sweat off of my face when it was hot, which was pretty often, and also blood off of my face when I fell down. I ended up clipping my rain skirt here because towards the end there I had some days where I was taking it off and putting it on pretty frequently, and having it handy there was useful. I did have my bear spray attached here, but I gave the bear spray away so I could fly home. I gave it away to some hitchhikers. I used a 700 milliliter smart bottle. You don't need to see a smart bottle, it's just a bottle like any other. And I had put a drinking cap on it, but I fell into a creek and dropped my bottle and my cap. A Canadian guy was there and saw me do it, and he caught my bottle before it floated away. But I searched and searched and couldn't find the drinking top, so I just ended up with the original cap on there, and I got used to drinking that way. It was fine. You don't need a special drinking cap. I have a pack towel that I used as a pee rag. It's clean right now, so don't worry, you're not looking at old pee. It does tend to get things stuck in it when it hits the ground. I had 2 1 liters and 1 2 liter for capacity, and sometimes I did use all the liters. In this pocket I kept a head net, and I kept it in this little bag because I didn't want to accidentally tear holes in it trying to zip the zipper. I didn't actually use it very often. I probably could have sent it home. The hood on my shirt really did a good job of keeping the mosquitoes away from my head and my face. I bought some line in West Yellowstone. I had other line for bear hanging in Glacier. I bought this to do bear hanging in West Yellowstone, but I never used it. Had a random piece of line just for whatever that I guess I never really used, but who cares? So in this zipper pocket, I carried 2 Clear Eyes drops bottles that I bought just for the bottles. I poured the Clear Eyes stuff out, and I put household bleach in there and used that for water treatment. 5 drops in a liter seemed to work fine. I never got sick from water. I also found this bottle, so I think it had bleach in it too, but my nose didn't work anymore, so I couldn't really tell and be sure. So I had a digital watch. Oh, why does it say 0? Anyway, it would beep every hour, which was handy to help keep track of how many miles sort of that I was doing, or you know what time it was. But somehow I turned that off. I'm not sure how that happened. I had an alarm though that for the longest time was still in California time, and I finally set it to Montana time. I don't know. I usually woke up before the alarm, but kind of let me know, oh, you're running late, you better hurry up. Getting ready. Inside here, I usually had all kinds of stuff in here, but I had this nice buff. This was like $1 at the 99-cent and up store, and it matched my hat really good. I really liked it. I had this nice alpha beanie that my friend made. This was great. I wore this a lot. It was just enough to just, you know, I could put it on over my unicorn hat, and it would keep my head warm enough. It would be just enough when I was cold, just to add the hat. The buff I used mainly to keep my hair out of my eyes. Tony sent me this gigantic green bandana, kind of randomly. I didn't ask for it. And what I ended up doing was I used the clips from these, from my bandana and my pea-ray. I just would clip that to my front pockets on my shorts, and it would hang down and cover my legs when I was walking into the sun, and so I was able to tolerate the sun a little bit better. I really wanted a second one so I could put it on the backs and then make like a little skirt. I had a headlamp. Didn't use this very often, except towards the end there it was starting to be very dark in the morning, so I would use it to put my stuff away in the morning before I started hiking. Here's a Fanny Pack and other things that I had. I actually kept my toothbrush in one of my breast pockets on my shirt because I dropped it twice. I had it in here. It would slip out and then fall on the trail. I dropped it twice on the trail, and twice people returned it to me. I thought I was pressing my luck there. I kept my AirPods in my breast pocket. If it rained, I put it in a plastic bag. I ended up sending home the wired headphones because these always worked. I never ran out of power, and I didn't need a spare set. I usually carried the toothpaste in my fanny pack. I would brush my teeth as I walked down the trail whenever they felt fuzzy. That was very handy. I kept all of these things in my pocket. That was a little thing of DEET, which is almost empty now. Chapstick, brush picks for, you know, between the teeth, and hand sanitizer. I bought a bigger thing of this because of the daily being bitten or stung on the back of my legs. I almost used it all up. I carried this in my fanny pack. It was a little bottle. It started out with Dawn dishwashing liquid, and then I would put liquid hand soap from dispensers, random dispensers, or hotel shampoo or whatever in there. It was nice to have if you went somewhere where there was a shower that had no soap. And my little knife, I use that all the time to cut open bags of candy or to cut my cheese that I eat for dinner. I bought this in West Yellowstone. I never got to use it, but it was, I was gonna put a pinch of light salt in all of my drinks. I thought I had an electrolyte imbalance, but I think maybe now it was just not recovering well from my head injury, maybe getting a concussion. I carried all my pills, all my over-the-counter pills mixed together in this. There was Claritin, Aleve, ibuprofen. I think that's it. Forget. Yeah, I think that's all I had. Here's my Fanny Pack. You could put your phone in there, and it never fell out, even when I fell into the Sun River and started floating away. I had a little wallet with, you know, credit cards and stamps and health insurance cards in there. These are my sunglasses. Had money and Sominex that didn't work. So it's the symptoms of an untreated chronic concussion, what we call it, post-concussion syndrome. Some of the symptoms that I had were nausea, fatigue, difficulty sleeping. There were some others. Anyway, the difficulty of sleeping was really, really bad. I hardly ever could sleep more than about 4 hours at night. Found a second binder clip in a hiker box to use to hold my bandana on my pants so that I could shade my legs in the sun. So I had a big giant pocket on the back of my pack, and I decorated it, and whoa, and some of them started coming off. Never stood up very well on its own. I found this, I have no idea what it is. I found this on the ground in Ledor and tied it to my pack, and there it's been ever since. It's totally useless weight, it doesn't do anything. I had safety pins. I think there was a second one, or there used to be a second one. I guess I lost it. I could pin my socks, like wrap them over this thing and pin my socks or whatever I wanted to dry back there so it wouldn't fall off, and dry things in the sun as I walked. There's my lighter. Inside I had like my office equipment, just a Ziploc, and I had notes. I had a Sharpie for writing hitchhiking signs and mailing, you know, writing the address on my packages. I had papers that I Xeroxed from the AAA road atlas so that I could kind of know where I was. It's weird to hike a trail in an unfamiliar state and have no idea where you are. So I highlighted the Continental Divide. The Continental Divide Trail really does try to follow the Continental Divide most of the time. So it was pretty good proxy. Like here's West Yellowstone. I could tell there was an airport here. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I can go home right now. But it was nice if you know, if you wanted to go to Dillon, you knew that Dillon was here. So that was very useful. So I started the trip with a cheap Frog Togs emergency rain jacket. It's gonna fall over, so I'm gonna come over to this side, hold it up. And then there's a gear shop on the trail, so I bought this nice Montbell rain jacket, and I kept it back there so I would be able to get it if it started to rain, get it quickly. I'd have to take my pack off, but I wouldn't have to dig through my pack. And it's a pretty good rain jacket. It has too many features though. I wish I wanted to spend time at some point and just cut all this crap off. It's got pockets that you don't need. It's way too feature rich, but you know, it worked except for one day I was completely drenched, even wearing that. Here's my other thing. I kept my tent stakes in the back so that I could always find them. I always make sure I didn't lose them. And sometimes other random stuff would go back there. This is my sleeping pad. I kept it full length. I bought it in St. Mary. I started out with just a torso length Nemo switchback, and I could feel the coldness coming up from the ground underneath me. So right after my one night out at Chief Mountain, I went to St. Mary and I bought this nice big one, and this was perfect. It makes a little island for you. It was, you know, longer than my whole body laying down, so I never had to worry that any part of me was in the dirt or the mud. And you don't have to worry that it's gonna pop. It just works. I kept the umbrella the whole way. I would have continued to keep it. It was a very useful piece of gear, good for shade in the sun, especially on road walks if it wasn't too windy. It was really good for, I slept with a tarp, and so if the wind was blowing through, I could put this at one end and block some of the wind, or if it was wind and rain, it would block with the wind and the rain. Gave me a little sense of security and comfort. I often had a lot more things back here than just this. Sometimes I would put my breakfast in here and a container and a spoon to eat out of, or I don't know, whatever I took off, I'd try to shove it in there. This was a second bandana I had. I used this to dry out my eating, my pot in my other container, which I'll show. I would try to wash it as good as I can and then drink the water that had food in it, and then after that I would just use this to dry it out and get the rest of the remaining food off of my pot. And then I had this breath mint container that I put my clear retainers. I put them in there when I wasn't wearing them. This works great. I have a small mouth though, so your mileage may vary if you try it. So, what's inside the pack? At the top I had this bag that I sewed up myself. It's made of that DCF, 0.51 ounce DCF fabric. I'll show you what's in there. I thought this sack was really useful. This became my pillow every night. I would take I would put my jacket in there or not, and had a nice, it was good enough for a pillow. It always worked. I had a pair of liner socks. I started the trail wearing liner socks with my regular socks to try to prevent blisters, but I didn't get any blisters, so I ended up keeping these as sleeping socks or socks I could switch out if my darn tufts were dry. My shoes were a little bit loose, so these made me a little bit unstable to walk in. My feet would slip around a lot, but I also used them as town socks when everything was in the washer. Next thing in there is a t-shirt. I bought this nice t-shirt in Helena, Montana, and I would wear this while I was doing my laundry. I'd wear it all the time in town, so I wasn't always wearing my hiking clothes. I got tired of wearing them. It was usually really warm in town, and so it's a short sleeve shirt. I was a lot more comfortable. I made a good pillow too. And then here's my hiking pants that I sewed myself. I wore these a lot. These were one of the better items I actually had. I wore them to sleep in because in shorts my sticky, sweaty legs sticking together and sticking to my foam pad would really bother me, and these were very light and thin and didn't overheat me. I wore them in town with like completely naked inside, no underwear, and they're not see-through, so I would wear this with my t-shirt, and I'd wear that the whole time I was in town while I'm doing laundry and doing everything else and not have to wear my hiking clothes all the time. Also in the bag is my Copperfield Enlightening equipment Copperfield wind jacket. It's super thin, just like my pants, and I considered sending this home a lot because I didn't use it very much. I think I probably would have used it more had I been out there long enough for it to start to get cold. Or it's a very useful piece of gear to have, especially locally here in Southern California. It's often all you really need as far as keeping warm. And you could put like a fleece underneath it, so it becomes the shell to your fleece and blocks the wind, and you'd be plenty warm and not have to also bring a down jacket. Here's my bag of first aid, just basically band-aids, tape and gauze, dental floss, a hair thing, the top part of a hairbrush, some more Sominex that didn't work, some Aquaphor. That's about it. So that's about everything that was inside my bag. Sometimes there were other things. I had my prescription medicine in there. I was taking Lipitor. I ended up throwing that away. Side effects are muscle pain and weakness and lethargy. Who wants that when you're trying to hike a trail? I threw that shit away. I hate that stuff. I'm never taking it. I don't care what my doctor says. I'd rather die. I had a Zoleo. Zoleo is great. I turned it to the unlimited text messages plan so I could text Tony when I was lonely. It's not very good for having a conversation. There's a lot of lag time, but it was good if I was really wanting to send a little text message. And then it does the whole, you know, check-in, sends an I'm okay message to whoever you set up. So every night I would send a check-in message, and then Tony could see where I was on the trail. It also does the SOS, so that obviously I never did that. I had a RAV Power 20,000 milliamp charger. It weighs a ton. It worked great though. I never ran out of power. My longest section I think was 8 days in the Bob. It made it through the whole 8 days, charging my headphones, my phone. Never really needed to charge anything else. The Zoleo doesn't need much charging. I didn't use the flashlight until like the last 2 weeks of the trail. Had a couple charger cables. Had really short ones, which were kind of challenging sometimes when the cord is like halfway up the wall. Yeah, I'd have to build ways to hold the phone up so it wouldn't just fall out. I had more electronics in this dry bag. I think this dry bag is no longer waterproof. It's seen better days. The original Apple thing. And this one I bought in a gas station. Probably this is all I need is the two. But I did have 3 separate things to charge. I also had this card, if you can see it right there, card camera reader. And I had several cards. I only ever used one 64 gig so far. I had another 64 gig and a bunch of smaller ones just in case. So the idea was that I could hike a section and take all the pictures I wanted, and then after the end of the section I could transfer them, or at the end of a night, whatever I wanted to do, I could transfer them to using this thing to one of these cards, and then delete them off my phone and get some more free space for more photos. Worked great. I carried the directions for how to use it written down on a piece of paper because at first it was hard to remember how it works. So after that is my food. I used an Ursack. Tony bought this Ursack. It's the original from like 1990 something. And it's a lot smaller than the one most people had. Most people had the Almighty. The Ursack Almighty is taller, so I wouldn't have been able to lay it horizontal like this in my pack. It would have been really difficult to use. I would have had to, like, you know, unpack most of the food and carry it outside of the Ursack and then put it all in there at night for hanging on a tree, which is kind of what I ended up doing after I started eating more food. I couldn't get a full 5 days of food in here. I'll show you my food. So the first thing, I lined the whole thing with a turkey roasting bag. Thing is indestructible. And that way when I hung it outside at night, it would keep all the bags of food inside dry. It'd be gross if you had to like take all your food out after it rained and like dry each individual bag to try to keep it all dry. So lining it was my solution. Seemed to work okay. So here's the breakfast I was eating towards the end of the trail. I started out eating hot breakfast and ended up eating cold breakfast. I would take oats. I'd basically make a muesli with oats and seeds and nuts. I get the seeds and nuts from the baking aisle. They're better for eating than the salty snack ones. Better for eating in something like this. Maybe I'd put dates or other dried fruit in there. And then I'd get crunchy granola, so it was crunchy and just plain oatmeal. And then I'd put a little bit of whey protein powder and or instant non-fat milk in there. And I've been eating it at home now that I'm home, and it tastes good even at home. For breakfast, I would also usually have 2 Starbucks Vias with 1 Carnation Breakfast Essentials. I tried all the flavors. I went back and forth whether chocolate or vanilla was best. And sometimes I would add some powdered milk, or I'd also add some whey protein powder to it to make it extra satiating. I would just drink this and start hiking, and then later on I would stop and eat my muesli breakfast. If I bought the strawberry flavored breakfast essentials, then I would make the coffee with just milk and protein powder, and then I would drink the breakfast essentials as like a snack. It was really good. I never got tired of it. I really looked forward to the breakfast essentials. Almost every night for dinner, I ate a whole package of instant mashed potatoes. I would eat it hot. I would add chunks of cheddar cheese. I carried plain old cheddar cheese on the hike. I would put that in there so it would melt. For a while there, I had a Nutella jar full of butter, so I would put butter in there, and it would be all gooey and melted. And then I'd put the salmon or tuna on top, and some of this Japanese rice topping for the minerals in this. You know, the seaweed has, I assume it has lots of good minerals. I was hoping. And that would be my dinner. And then for dessert, I would have cookies with Nutella spread on it. This last section, I was gonna eat M&Ms for dessert. So for lunch, I just ate snacks all day. Here's snacks that I had at the end of my hike. A nice package of cookies every day, which is good. And these are really salty, and I forget what they said almonds had. It was either magnesium or potassium. Payday candy bars are the best because they don't melt, and they're not that sweet. They're a little sweet, a little salty, not overly sweet. I would usually have 1 or 2 of these fruit snacks to eat. Usually I would start getting hungry around 5, and I didn't want to stop and have dinner. I wanted to have dinner laying down in my tent and not think about having to get up and walk after dinner, or not have to fight off rain or bugs while I was eating or cooking my dinner. So the fruit snacks were often what I ate at 5 to just get me to my campsite. And then I would bring instant pudding. I would pre-mix some powdered milk in there. So all I had to do was add water, and I would usually do half. So I do 1 cup of pudding. Okay, next up would be my cooking things. I don't have any fuel. I gave it away to hitchhikers, but I usually shoved it on this side as far down as it would go. I like the medium-sized fuel. It lasts forever. Here's my pot, my cooking kit. A mouse or rat ate part of my cozy that I made, and then it sort of tore, and I taped it up with my first aid kit. But it kept working. It's kind of more for being able to hold the pot in your lap or whatever without burning yourself when the food is hot inside. Inside, I had one of these Toque 750 milliliter. This was the perfect size. It works as a cup. It works as a bowl. It was enough to cook the mashed potatoes in and fill it full of tuna and cheese, and it was almost up to the brim, but this is just big enough for 1 person. Inside, I had a plastic screw top container, which I highly recommend having one of these. If you can find something like this. Gatorade makes an HDPE plastic, that's what this is, screw top container. It's a little bigger than this, but HDPE plastic will handle boiling water and it will handle cold water. So you can either use it to drink your coffee or to put something hot in there to eat, or I would use it I would put the pudding mix in there, or I'd put the breakfast essentials with the milk and the protein powder in there, and I would shake it, and that would stir it up a lot better than just trying to stir it with your spoon and scrape the lumps on the side. It wasn't always perfect. Inside there, I had my spoon. I like the short handled spoon because I don't eat Mountain House dinners and don't need a long handled spoon. And then my stove is inside here. My lighter would usually be in there too. This is my stove. I don't know what kind it is. It's a Snow Peak something or other. Worked just fine. If I kept my stove and lighter in some kind of a bag, then if any residual moisture inside the container wouldn't rust the stove, and it wouldn't cause the lighter to stop working. The lighter getting wet wouldn't work, so I kept them both usually in this bag. I used a polycryo ground sheet. This one's brand new. Tony sent it to me to West Yellowstone, and I never got to use it. Next in the pack was my tarp, which I would roll up to the best of my ability, but I didn't put it in a stuff sack or anything. After a while, I left the homemade bug netting attached to it and just rolled the whole thing up together. You don't really need a stuff sack to hold your stuff. Once it's in the backpack, it's not going anywhere. Next up, I had a black plastic trash bag that I got at some hostel. I had originally started with a blue sil nylon bag, but the bag would keep only some things safe. If it was gonna thunderstorm really heavy, this plastic bag could keep everything safe because it was much taller than my whole pack. Turns out there's a hole somewhere back here, and there was a really heavy rainstorm where I never have seen so much rain falling at once. I couldn't even see where I was going. It was raining so hard, and the rain got in my backpack somehow, probably through whatever little hole there is on the outside somewhere in there, and also got inside of my rain jacket and my rain skirt. I mean, I was completely soaked head to toe. So after that, I got this larger thing. I never experienced that much rain after that. And then inside here, my jacket. This is the EE Enlightened Equipment toward Cpex. It's a synthetic jacket, not a down jacket. It was great. I thought of sending it home frequently, and every time I thought of that, I would end up wearing it the next day for only a few minutes, just in the morning while I was eating my breakfast, or, you know, putting things together, putting my backpack back together in the morning. And then it was like, okay, now I'm too hot. I don't need this. I think I could have done without it probably until fall, but you know, I just kept carrying it. It made a nice pillow. It was nice to wear in town. You know, I'd spend more time outside of my sleeping bag, outside in the air in town than I did on the trail. So it was nice to have it. And last thing in my backpack at the very bottom inside the plastic bag is my Cpex 10-degree mummy bag. It was way too warm. For the end of June, Glacier, all the way to the beginning of August, West Yellowstone, there were some nights I was just like unable to barely even have this thing next to me, let alone on top of me. But eventually it would cool down, and then it would be tolerable. So it's more than I needed, but I don't think I would have been happy with anything else, because I knew that no matter what, I was always going to be warm enough. I rarely used the hood because it was so warm, but I did at first. As you can see, all my stuff has sort of a green theme going, including my clothing and Fanny Pack and everything. I really liked that all of my stuff was green. I don't know why, but it was sort of fun for me. It made me happy, and being happy is important when you're doing something so difficult. Another thing I had was a Gossamer Gear thin light pad, which I would wedge back here behind the trampoline of my pack, and that was easier to remove for sitting down than that one there. That one was really hard to get out of those loops, and I would use it at night. I would lay down my yellow pad, my accordion pad, and then put this one next to it and lay down my backpack and empty out the contents onto it, so I had a nice big space for my things. This is a Cpex Arc Blast. It's a small. When they used to make small, now they don't make small. You have to get the Arc Scout. It has a homemade lumbar pad, because the padding on the hip belt allows you to feel this carbon fiber bar against your back, and it really hurts. So I added that. It has the added side pockets, which I notice seem to have suffered some kind of, they're starting to come apart, so I might need to get some new ones. The pack did great. I was very happy with it. I baby the hell out of it because people say they're fragile, but it's still going. I'm going to use it as long as I can. So I held on to my strum stick until Lima, and then I sent it home reluctantly, it did get in my way a lot, especially in the blowdowns. It was pretty heavy at 13 ounces, but I really enjoyed playing it in town, and people seemed to enjoy listening. They kept saying, no, no, don't mail it home. But finally I was so alone that I didn't really have anyone to play for anymore. So there was one day where I was so desperate, I just sent home every small little thing that barely weighed anything that I'd only used once or twice or less. And so these rain mitts went home. I also sent home everything mosquito protective except the head net and the mesh inner tent for my tarp. So that means the little mitts that I was just showing, I kept that. That's the head net. I sent home the mosquito jacket. I only wore that once or twice. It was kind of nice when I wore it. And I wished I had the bug pants, but I would have ended up sending those home just to save some weight anyway. I also sent home, obviously, any maps I didn't need anymore, and I sent home a lot of the papers that I had brought. I didn't need the data book. If I'd already used the information, I just sent it home. Everything counts. I sent home the thermometer, whistle, compass thingy, didn't need that. I sent home all the sunscreen, didn't need that after using it a couple of times. Didn't need the blister patches. I think I sent home or lost some of my hair things. I think I mentioned already that I sent home the legs to my pants because they broke. I also sent home the bra because you don't need a bra. I sent home the extra insoles and those sandals. I didn't need any camp shoes. I sent home the wired headphones. The AirPods worked just fine. I replaced the Frog Togs rain jacket with a Montbell rain jacket, and Mango used my Frog Togs all the way to Lima, and then it was totally ruined and she threw it out.